Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm talking to you about a very interesting historical fiction novel which is called The Raiders of Surat. Now, this is the first book in a trilogy. The next two books are yet to be published. The author Shreyas Bhave, he sent this book to me. The trilogy is called The Legend of Bahirji Nayak. Now, if you haven't already guessed from the title, this historical fiction novel is set in 17th century India. To be very specific, it's set in the city of Surat for most part, and it deals with the struggle and the conflict between the Maratha swarajya and the stronghold of the Mughals in the city of Surat. Now, like, the Maratha swarajya is in danger. It's led by Shivaji Maharaj, and so their chief Guptachars, Bahirji and Nayak, they decide that the best way of bringing Pune out of the trouble that it's in, and in for reviving the Swarajya, is to raid Surat. Now, Surat is a very like rich city, and even in the author's note, the author mentioned that it was like the Bombay of that time. So yeah, lots of riches available there, and the sack of Surat would of course make the Swarajya very rich and bring it out of all their troubles. So that's the plan. They're going to raid Surat, led by the chief Guptachars, Bahirji and Nayak, and a very important character, which is their apprentice, you can say, a 16-year-old boy called Shashi Dhwaj. Now, one thing about Shashi Dhwaj I want to mention is that he's the only character through which you can kind of see some sort of character development. Now, since this is a historical fiction novel, there's not a lot of scope for character development. It's just set like in a particular event, but still the author manages to, through Shashi Dhwaj, to show some sort of conspicuous growth of character. Now, talking about the entire plot and the narrative, it's non-linear, which means that the story, in each chapter focuses on a different group of people. So, like, some chapters focus on these chief Guptachars of Shivaji Maharaj, and then some chapters would focus on the traders of Surat, some would focus on the Mughals. So this way you get a really like rounded character of the city of Surat. You really get to understand what was happening in that city at that particular point of time in history, and this really brings alive that time of history in your mind. Another thing that helps you vividly visualize what was actually happening at that time is this map, which is a route map of the sack of Surat that the author has provided. It says route taken to Surat by the Maratha forces. Now, when you read the book, you'll actually find how helpful this map is in terms of like understanding whatever the author has depicted, and also, as I said, in kind of vividly visualizing the entire thing, so you can get more involved in the story. It feels more lifelike and just overall more interesting. What I find really interesting is that, and I got to know about this through the author's note itself, that this figure, this man called Bahirji Nayak, he's like a famous person whenever you talk about the Maratha kingdom. But the thing is that he's talked about a lot in the oral tradition, but he's still an enigma, and that is because there are no written records of his existence. Even though that was a time where everything was like written and recorded, there are no written records of this man. So I think that's something very interesting. And another interesting thing that the author did with this figure of Bahirji Nayak is that he took some creative liberty and he split this man into two. So even though he's like one person when he's talked about in the oral tradition, the author has split him into two spies, which are Bahirji and Nayak. So I think that's one little thing that really contributes to making the story interesting. Now, I'll be very honest, when you first start reading the book, it can get a little difficult to like get involved into the story, or actually like have a full grasp of what's happening, because there are lots of characters, and since it's a non-linear narrative, every chapter is focusing on something else. So yes, it can get a little difficult in the beginning, but once you're past around 15 to 20 pages, the it gets interesting. You start understanding what's happening, you start understanding the stories and the situations of each and every character, so that gets interesting. And by the time you reach the second half of the book, it just really picks up pace, and you would not want to put the book down until and unless you find out what happens at the end. Coming to the language of the book, it's fairly easy to read. The vocabulary and all is pretty simple, very easy to read for you. And also, if you're wondering that you don't know about the history of Surat or of the Maratha swarajya, so you'll not be able to understand, that's not the case. Because as I said, there's an author's note in the beginning, and there are like around 3 to 4 line descriptions for each character that give you like a background of who that character is, what purpose he is serving in the story. So that kind of prepares you for what's coming, and you'll not feel lost at all in the story. One very specific thing that I actually liked about the book is that when you see Shashi Dhwaj entering Surat for the very first time, there's a description of how he finds Surat. So he finds it like very crowded, and he says he's never seen such a crowd before, and it's hustling and bustling and basically very active. The city is very active, there are people all around, trade is happening, and all those sorts of things. And then when the destruction begins, when the raid begins, and this is the first day of the raid, and Shashi Dhwaj, as a Guptachar, as a part of the army, he enters for the first time. He enters Surat for the first time, and then he tells that the streets were deserted and there were no people, there was destruction all around, nothing else was happening. So I think this juxtaposition of how he finds Surat both times, I think this really helps in delivering an impact of the actual event. Now, this was a very specific thing that I like. There's also another very specific thing that I didn't quite enjoy, which is like whenever any character is referring to Shashi Dhwaj, they end their dialogue with boy. So for instance, like they'll say, come here boy, do this boy, you don't know boy. So that can get a little annoying every time, ending the dialogue with boy. But that's like kind of the only thing I did not like. So overall, the book is pretty interesting. Historical fiction fans, definitely this is a book you should get for yourself, and even if you're not particularly into the genre, you'll still enjoy it. There's the story is not at all draggy, no useless details are present in the book. Overall, very enjoyable. I am also looking forward to the next 2 books in the trilogy. And yeah, that was my review for the book. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you did, do not forget to give a thumbs up to this video and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notifications bell icon so whenever I'll be posting a video, you'll be notified. You can also follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is mentioned here on the screen. The link to reach my profile is in the description box, so you can click that, reach my profile and follow me. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.